everybody. Welcome to the Creature Crossing podcast. My name is Braden. I'm joined by my co-host, Brennick. How are you, Brennick?
I'm excellent. Thank you.
And we're joined today by Jared. Jared, how are you today?
I'm still kicking.
Good, good. Jared, so you're like a dino digger guy, right? You're a paleo guy?
Yeah, of sorts. I suppose I'll give a background, just kind of super brief background for those who don't know and are finding the channel for the first time. So basically, I'm an undergraduate student at Texas A&M. I'm a senior, quite a super senior at this point, but it's okay. We have many things that we're trying to float at the same time here. And I would just say like a science communicator right now. So The goal, the ambition is to be professional paleontologist, working at a university as a professor or a museum as a curator, something like that, and doing paleontology through that means. But what I've kind of done in the process is I started out as just a fossil hunter. There are many fossil hunters. Anyone can be a fossil hunter if they want to be, you don't really need anything to be a good fossil hunter. Sure, you need knowledge, but anyone can fossil hunt, right? So I was just among that crowd. And over time, during that fossil hunting journey, I have started to find more and more interesting things that are of more and more scientific relevance and value. And I've gotten my foot in the door with some researchers. And now, as I guess an amateur, it's weird. I guess I'm an amateur researcher. Like, I'm working with researchers and like actually writing, and we're getting pubs out, but I don't have my degree yet. So like on the way, I'm on the way. I'm like this weird intermediate point, and I've been documenting all of that on social media where you guys found me, I'm sure, and been having some success there. So that's just kind of what we're doing out here. We're in Texas, finding lots of fossils, filming it along the way, and y'all get to see it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I found you from your TikTok actually, and I was a big paleo fan before I got into herpetoculture, which is the theme of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really important to me to kind of blend the two when we decided to do the show, just because they're both such big interests of mine. And Brennick is somebody who I've known for a long time, and I really like him too. He's all right. But so I found you through there, and I thought your content was super cool because you have an awesome way of taking something that some person who maybe doesn't know what maybe a tooth plate of like a stingray is, and making that really interesting, and not only that, but educational. And I thought that was really interesting because, not everybody can do that in the sense of taking something that maybe, okay, somebody might say, okay, yeah, but it's not a T-Rex tooth. Yeah, but there's other animals, right? Like, and I wanted to ask you before we get any farther. So, like I said, you're a dino guy. Paleo is a lot more than just dinosaurs. Are you looking into specifically, like, do you want to be a dinosaur paleontologist? Do you want to be, something else? What are you kind of working towards?
I'm glad you asked, because it's kind of funny. People always ask, like, "Oh, so you study dinosaurs?" Not at all. I don't study dinosaurs at all. I'm actually more like, currently my interests are, they would make me kind of a paleo herpetologist in a way.
Cool.
Because what I'm interested in, and the work that I'm doing right now in conjunction with the folks at SMU, is centered around mosasaurs. And for those who don't know what mosasaurs are, if you've ever seen Jurassic World or Jurassic Park, the thing that jumps out of the water and eats the shark, that's a mosasaur. And it kind of saves the day. Not to do any spoilers, but it's a big, scary underwater swimming thing. And I think part of what got me interested in paleontology in the first place, because I used to be a herper. I'm just kind of I'm a washed out. I was a bad herper. I'm just like a bad washed out herper, and I fell into paleo instead. And part of what sparked that interest, among many things, was when I discovered that mosasaurs, which I knew we could find here in Texas, are actually lizards. Like, mosasaurs are just straight up lizards. They're squamates. And to find out that they're not this like hard to understand ancient reptile group, and they're like just straight up lizards, was mind blowing to me. The largest lizards that have ever lived. So Yeah, no, I study mosasaurs. I guess I'm a herpetologist in a sense. That's carried through. When I was into herpetology, I was more interested in snakes. But there's actually a little bit of discourse between the relationship of mosasaurs to snakes, anyway. So it kind of all is relevant. And in the process of looking for mosasaurs here in Texas, at least, actually anywhere, but my experience with mosasaurs is Texas, and in that process, you find a lot of shark teeth of different sharks that some of them are really unusual. Sharks that you've never even imagined could exist, with highly unusual dentitions, teeth that are so alien looking, and you fall into rabbit holes that way. I'm interested in sharks. I'm interested in fish. Right now, I'm working on a fish paper just as a side project, and the diversity of the finds that you can make while fossil hunting and looking for these things is just it's so much, really. If you think about it, what paleontology is, it's the study of all life that's ever lived. So you have to specialize. And yeah, for now, I'm specializing in the lizards. I'm specializing in mosasaurs because they're cool and I keep finding them.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask if you've had any success finding any.
Yeah. So that was actually kind of how I got my foot in the door into academic paleo. It's what enabled me to go from just a guy walking around in creeks to someone who actually has something to write about. Because in man, the time frame is getting kind of long now. In 2021, I was still such a noob. I only really discovered my paleo interest in 2020. Okay,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, 2020 ish. But I only started fossil hunting regularly in 2021, like spring 2021. So this is only a few years into it, really, because for those listening way down the line, we're in February 2026, so it's about 5 years now, and that I've been taking it really seriously. So yeah, one of the first things I found, my second scientifically significant discovery, it was a co-find between my stepbrother and I, my stepbrother Christian. We discovered a mosasaur skeleton, but a really, really old mosasaur skeleton. And it was a little bit on accident. We were looking for shark teeth, which we were finding in abundance. And this mosasaur skeleton comes when I'm gonna set the scene for you. You're in this quiet creek. You lift this slab of rock, and Christian sees like this brown stuff. What that ended up being was the two vertebrae of the cervical region, the axis and the atlas. So that just means neck vertebrae, and the back of a skull. But we were noobs. Christian would like join me for fun, but he wasn't really that into paleo. And at that point, I was the sweat, but I was still a noob. So I knew I was looking at a mosasaur probably, but that was only after we saw a tooth. I had trouble interpreting what we were seeing. And so at this point, we find this mosasaur. We contact the mosasaur researchers at SMU, Southern Methodist University. It's up in Dallas. And he gets back to me, the mosasaur researcher there, and he's very excited because this mosasaur skeleton is in very, very, very old rock for a mosasaur. This is one of the oldest mosasaurs ever found. And that was cause for excitement. And so over the course of a couple years, actually, this wasn't all in one go because we were fighting with the creek flooding and all sorts of things. Over the course of a couple years, we finally summoned a big excavation to get the whole thing out. And that specimen is now it's nicknamed Olive. I've decided to name it after the nickname, at least, naming it after my stepbrother, Christian Olafir. Olafir, Olive, this is like a common name. I think it works. And the bone color is also very like olive looking.
Cool.
And yeah, that's a new species of mosasaur, and we're writing it right now. It's been a challenge to get that out because the rock that it's in is very difficult to work with. So just the physical preparation, just scribing away the matrix from the bone, has been so tedious. And it's not this perfect, beautiful specimen either. Olive is very exploded. Like, I was a noob when I did that excavation. I ended up breaking a lot of bone, which glued back together. Thank goodness. I was under the guidance of the folks at SMU, but they couldn't make it there. It was like it fell onto us. And so it was me constantly calling like, "Hey, am I doing this right? I don't know what I'm doing." And they were very encouraging and helpful, and we did get it out. But yeah, there were breaks along the way. But even before what we broke, that skeleton was busted. Whatever
Yeah.
process deposited it very violently, and as a result, we have a lot of really important bones. We have a lot of the good stuff, everything that we need to diagnose it as a new species, everything that we need to diagnose it as a new species, and more, actually, because it's going to be pretty important to untangling the early evolution of mosasaurs. But the preparation is very difficult because you don't know when you're just going to bump into another piece of bone because it's so exploded. So it's been a very slow, tedious preparation. And we're thinking, I say this every year, but I mean it this year. I really mean it. I think we're going to get that publication out this year. So yeah, watch out for a new species of mosasaur that will be dropping probably in the second, in the last third of the year. I imagine they'll be probably
Okay.
showing up.
Amazing.
I have questions as I am a paleo nerd who unfortunately decided. Okay, so just real quick, I was gonna go into paleo. That was always my plan. And then the year I had to decide, I told myself, I want to help by I want to work with animals that are still alive. I
Mhm.
think I can make more of a difference today. I went to zoology. That was the worst decision I ever made. It pays like shit. And it turns out that paleo is actually super important. But so I stopped that career. I loved my time as zookeeping, but I'm done with it now.
Mhm.
Uh, I wish I went into paleo. Anyway, now that I'm off my totem pole, I have questions, and I don't even know exactly how this works. If you'd even be allowed to tell me, is it the oldest?
It is not the oldest mosasaur.
Okay,
The oldest.
okay,
The definitions here get kind of weird, right?
yeah,
So, just to give you the background of mosasaurs as a whole, again, these are flippered lizards, but flippers are just a trait to adopt to the water. So, we don't call something I'll say this: we shouldn't call something a mosasaur by virtue of it having flippers, because mosasaurs have direct ancestors, and those direct ancestors would not have had flippers. So where do you then make the cutoff to call something a mosasaur? What it should be is shared derived characters in the skeleton. All that means is that you should have skeletons of a group that have enough traits in common with each other and only with each other that you can say with certainty that they all come from a common ancestor. So, as such, you're going to have early mosasaurs that don't have flippers yet, but do have skeletal traits in common with flippered mosasaurs. So, they should be called mosasaurs. But the mosasaurs that don't have flippers are not usually called mosasaurs. They're given their own name in research, and that's not right. I think it's going to be fixed probably pretty soon. And if no one fixes it, then I'm going to fix it. Um, the mosasaurs that are the earliest mosasaurs, these things don't really have true flippers yet. They're called the agylosaurs or agialosaurs or however you want to pronounce it. I call them agylosaurs. Agylosaurs, in my mind, are just like, if they led to mosasaurs, then they're probably mosasaurs. So they, as a whole, you should call them mosasauroids. Mosasauroids includes the agylosaurs and the mosasaurs and the dolichosaurs, which are a sister group to those, but we don't have to get into anything complicated here. And so, to answer your question, in my opinion, the oldest mosasaur is probably Hasiosaurus. That is an early Cenomanian, so probably like 97, 98, 99 million-year-old tiny little mosasaur that was found in Israel and described in, I think, 1999. There is technically an Aegyalosaur that was, and I say that with quotes, Aegyalosaur, that was described from Germany from the Jurassic, but it was
cool.
described
I
off of
didn't know that.
a couple skull pieces. I think they call it Proaegyalosaurus. They described it off of a couple skull pieces in the 50s. Those skull pieces have since then been lost, and the pieces that were used to describe it were like really scrappy. So odds are it was not even an Aegylosaur. It was just a case of mistaken identity. So that's why I say, like, in literature, technically the oldest is Proaegyalosaurus from the Solnhofen limestone in Germany, but it's really not. It's probably Hasiosaurus. But then, if you want to get further into semantics, the oldest thing that you call a mosasaur, so when you think mosasaurs, what you're thinking of are the mosasaurids, right? So it's like clade within a clade within a clade. So the clade you're thinking of when you think mosasaur are the mosasaurids. The oldest mosasaurid is like non-agalosaur mosasaur is going to be Cerabosaurus or Tethyosaurus. Those are early Turonian. So I think they're in the realm of like 94 million years old, something like that. So there's a lot of like weird semantical errors here. Olive is very old. Olive is Turonian, probably middle Turonian. We need to do the biostrat a little cleaner, but from what we can tell, probably around middle Turonian. So olive will end up coexisting with things like Russellosaurus, for example. This is another Turonian mosasaur, also from Texas, around the same time. That's what we suspect. Again, we have to nail down biostrat. But my hypothesis is that, yeah, it's going to be around middle Turonian is what Olive is, and she is among the like handful of Turonian mosasaurs that are known.
Okay. And just in case people don't know, Turonian is within the Cretaceous.
Yes, Turonian is the late Cretaceous. It is the second it's the second oldest portion of the late Cretaceous. We break up these time periods into a lot of smaller segments to keep track. For reference, if you need something to correlate it, Turonian is just after Spinosaurus. Maybe the last Spinosaurus were hanging on in the Turonian, but well before T-Rex. Dinosaurs that were living in the Turonian were like Zuniceratops, for example. It's not a very well understood time for land animals, but this is the Turonian. It's when like the pliosaurs, they go extinct after the Turonian. So like the big Pac-Man looking things with giant flippers and giant heads and short little bodies, they don't make it out of the Turonian, for example. So there's a big faunal turnover in Cretaceous oceans and even kind of on land around this time, around the middle Cretaceous. And the Turonian is just after the middle Cretaceous. And that's when the earliest mosasaurs as we know them show up, even though they probably show up in the Cenomanian.
Are you of the opinion that Mosasaurs showed up and fucked everybody up, and that's why everything changed within ocean ecosystems?
I have to be careful, right? Because I love speculating, and I want to speculate all day long. And when I speculate, I want people to understand that that's what it is. It's speculation. So don't take my word for gold. Like research should be done on this to prove me right or wrong. But yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
There's so many things that demonstrate like so many coincidences. Like mosasaurs show up and then X goes away, and there are ways you can test it. There's a lot of interesting like chemistry work that can be done on teeth to see like what things we're eating. So yeah, sure, look for overlaps, see what happens, something like that. That's fine. But as far as I know, it's not been looked into super heavily, like these competitive relationships. It's just, is it really a coincidence that as the first big mosasaurs appeared, sharks in the Cretaceous got smaller? Probably not. Like the big sharks in the Cretaceous just don't exist after the first big mosasaurs start showing up. Cretoxyrhina, Cretotus, they just start going down once large mosasaurs like Talosaurus nebiolicus start to show up in the Cretaceous. Pliosaurs go extinct as the first medium-sized, somewhat large mosasaurs start showing up as well. Ichthyosaurs, probably not. I think something else happened to the ichthyosaurs because they were on their way out well before mosasaurs showed up, and the last stragglers disappear before the maybe as the very earliest tiny mosasaurs are crawling into the water, like the very earliest agalosaurs are crawling into the water, sometime in the Albion. Well, actually no. Now that I think about it, you do get early Cenomanian records of ichthyosaurs here in Texas. So yeah, ichthyosaurs go away right as the very first mosasaurs start showing up. But the mosasaurs that were showing up in the Cenomanian are pretty small. They would be like kibble to a Platypterygius, which is the last ichthyosaur in the U.S., which is a giant animal. So I don't think mosasaurs took out the ichthyosaurs, but I suspect they took out the pliosaurs or the last species of pliosaur. Because again, pliosaurs as a whole, as a clade, the clade is just a group of animals. Pliosaurs as a clade were disappearing anyway before the mosasaur showed up. But you did have some big pliosaurs around, and then the mosasaurs show up, and then boom, those pliosaurs are gone. Sharks, I think, is where the impact is really striking. There were no big sharks when big mosasaurs were swimming around. Like Cretoxyrhina mantilli did exist. There is an overlap. That was the biggest shark in the Cretaceous period, probably the biggest shark in the Cretaceous period. And there were some big mosasaurs at the time, but I think it was a brief moment of conflict. Really, Cretoxyrhina does not last far once the big mosasaurs start showing up. So sharks is pretty evident in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always, I mean, like as a non-professional, somebody who's just interested in, the thing, I've always been like, I think it was Mosasaurs. You know what I mean? Like, I have no stake and I'm no dog in this fight. But now, real quick before we get off of it, or just before I forget, because I'm a lightweight and I'm already 2 beers in and I'm starting to forget. Are you you're of the speculation that Mosasaurs derived from lizards and not snakes?
I'm of that opinion, yes.
Well, not considering. I mean, if you want to get into it, snakes are also lizards, but
yes,
ignoring that.
Yeah, snakes are very derived lizards. I don't really have a dog in this fight either. Like, I am interested in the early stuff, but I'm interested in the relationships of the early stuff among each other. I'm not really tying them back to snakes, but there has been lots of banter, lots of friendly, sometimes not friendly banter.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of two cliques of ideologies here, and the de facto opinion, like the strongest opinion for the longest time, is that Mosasaurs had a very Varanus-like ancestor.
Yeah.
So out in the know, Varanus, that's monitor lizards, Komodo dragons, that kind of thing. That kind of got, that idea started getting turned over and played with a little bit in the 90s. And lots of people were suggesting that Mosasaurs were closer to snakes. And since then, I think that's been shot down kind of well.
Yeah.
But I have to admit my bias, like from what I've read, I think the most thorough work has been the work debunking the snake hypothesis. But that was also work done by my mentor. So I know I'm biased, but I do genuinely think he did a more thorough job than the advocates for Mosasaurs are close to snakes crew. So yeah, yes, I'm biased, but just read it. Just read it. I encourage y'all to read it. Look at the origins of the Pythonomorpha hypothesis and follow that research rabbit hole, and you're probably that depends. I personally think they're closer to lizards. Just look at them. Come on, dude.
That's what I mean. Me personally, as again, speaking as somebody who's a paleo fan, I've always been more on okay, these things are obviously lizards. Obviously in a way that, don't take my word for it because I'm not a professional, but just looking from the outside. I also again, for me it is biased because varanids are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but within the last it's not been long, within the last 5 years, a lot of paleo media, especially video games, has depicted, I think Prehistoric Planet might have did it, Mosasaurs with flicking tongues. That is fucking cool.
And they
every time I come on.
That's legit. They definitely were. I mean, their tongues are probably fleshy, more fleshy than a snake's tongue. But yeah, they could certainly flick their tongue away.
A tegu's. Have you seen a tegu tongue, Jared?
I have a dim image in my head.
Yeah, so if you think just a monitor lizard tongue, but they're much thicker, they're much fleshier than a varanid or a snake tongue, because varanids and snakes are also quite close if you compare snakes to or varanids to agamids and anoles or whatever. But,
yeah, and I imagine they're fleshy. I'm basing that off of anything besides vibes, but
yeah,
they're definitely going to be flicking their tongue. There's no way they weren't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will okay, I'm gonna stop saying it after this, but as a paleo fan and not a professional, sure, I would die on that hill for sure because
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with not, even though like having a paleo guy on, not talking about dinosaurs. But I want to ask you before we move on and not mention dinosaurs one time again. What's your favorite dinosaur? It's important. It's an important question, and I believe everybody should be asked with once, at least once.
It is a hard question. So here's the thing: we're really like a product of our environment, right? The reason I study mosasaurs is because my brother and I found one. So, like, obviously that's why mosasaurs are my favorite, because I found them. Like the fish that I like are fish that I found. It just how happens that way. I have been in the Hell Creek Formation how many times now? 2 or 3? I've been in the Hell Creek Formation 3 times now. The dinosaur I have found the most by far is Triceratops, but that's because they're everywhere and there's a strong preservation bias to them. And they're underrated. I even have one on my hat, actually. It's
Cool.
funny.
I like that.
But it might not be Triceratops. This is gonna sound crazy, man, but it might just genuinely be T-Rex. Like, that sounds so basic. I understand, but there's definitely like, have you ever seen that curb? It's like a meme. There's this curb of like dumb guy says this, and then like middle of the curb is just like your normie, and they're like saying something else with conviction, and then at the end of the curb, it's like smart guy is saying the same thing that the dumb guy is, but he's saying it for different reasons.
Yeah.
It's like hard to explain. I think that's low-key how it goes with T-Rex. I'm not gonna lie.
I think T-Rex is as widely studied and as big as it is for a fucking reason. Like,
yeah, it's cool.
I mean, it's not. Oh, people say T-Rex is overrated. It's overstudied. I think that it's not. I mean, look at the animal.
Yeah.
Even if you compare it to the other bigs of the Cretaceous, your Giganotosaurus, your Spinosaurus, any other fucking Tyrannosaur or Giganotosaur or whatever, or Carcharodontosaur, they're still, and people will argue this. I mean, you've read Facebook and YouTube comments. They're always under Tyrannosaurus Rex, whether it be because Tyrannosaurus Rex is heavier, its bite is believed to be bigger. If I'm saying anything wrong, correct me. But from my understanding, T-Rex is still like got its crown, and it has for fucking, as long as it has.
And it's so goddamn American too. Like, it's so.
It is.
Story. I have a story that I think y'all will think is cool. This is a story that was told to me. I didn't directly experience this, but nothing. Here, I'll start from here. So, T-Rex, you find it in the Hell Creek Formation, also the Lance in Wyoming and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, people are finding it in the Hell Creek. So you got to be in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. That's where you're looking for them. And the regions of Montana that you're looking are kind of like, like eastern Montana. The regions of South Dakota that you're looking in are extreme northwestern. Like, it's really that tri-state area where North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana meet in that corner. That's where T-Rex is. And that region it's prairie. Okay, it's all prairie, but the Hell Creek Formation itself is the sandy or clayey matrix, and so you get these big sand badlands that have very like nice definitive horizontal bands all throughout them. So it's a gorgeous environment, cool badlands in a prairie, and the way you get access to these badlands is typically you got to know a guy. So the folks I go up with, because whenever I don't study dinosaurs, right? So whenever I go and do Hell Creek things, it's really for content. And I mean, content and because it's cool. I'm not like, I can do a lot of content, but I'm gonna choose that because it's cool and my friends are involved with all that. So my friend Harrison Duran, he's like the biggest like paleontology themed related TikToker and Instagrammer. Like, he's more than everybody.
Why the hell do we have you on here?
I know. Get this guy. What was I gonna say? So he does the dinosaur stuff, right? And he knows some folks up there. And the way you get access is you basically just become friends with these ranchers. Like, these ranchers, they'll have thousands and thousands and thousands of acres that they're running cattle on. They care more about the grassy areas. They don't really care about the badlands because it's not as useful to the cattle. And you go up to them and say, hey, like, can I look on your land? And there's negotiation. You use tooth pulling and all sorts of things. But they eventually, everyone comes to an agreement. And so in the process of doing that, I don't know if it was Harry or if it was Harry's friend that was doing this, or Harry's like old coworker. Sorry, Harrison. they were telling me a story that they were talking to this old rancher. And they were just at a bar. This is where all the networking happens. One of these old bars just in these tiny towns in the West. And when you're thinking about these old farmers too, up in that region, they don't have like Southern accents. They all have this like, oh, I'm from North Dakota and I sound kind of funny. Like they have
The
that.
hell, you sound like you're from Brennick and I's neck of the fucking woods.
That's
Now
right.
you just sounded Canadian.
Yeah, no, they sound like that. They're basically just Norwegians that settled, and then their accent like never really went away, but it did become kind of weird, you know. So they that's how they sound. And so when you're imagining this, it's not some rough and gruff like Texan accent. No, they sound funny the whole time, but they look like rough and gruff dudes. And so he was telling Harrison this story that basically is like, yeah, we're running our cattle when we had to go across the river, and looking to the right, I saw these like the big old teeth falling out into the river, out of the gravel bank, but we were running the cattle, so we just had to keep going. It's just cowboys running their cattle across the river with the T-Rex skull weathering out at the side, and that's just like the most badass. Like, that's the most like American thing I can imagine. It's so cool. So yeah,
if I was that cowboy, I would have ran those cows off a fucking cliff and turned into a paleontologist. That's what I would have done.
Hey, a lot of them do it. A lot of those old ranchers, that's how they pay for their land, genuinely, because they'll just
I believe it.
Find fossils and sell them, and that's how they are paying for a lot of their expenses.
Yeah, you hear a lot about that in Canada too. I mean, we have T-Rex in Canada. Scotty's from Canada, I think.
Yep.
And Alberta's like the same thing, exact same thing. Lots of ranchers, lots of badlands. It's just a little colder. That's all.
Yeah, what do they call Alberta? It's like the Canadian version of Texas or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely our Texas. Brennick, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Diplodocus.
Oh, I love Diplodocus. That's a fucking good one. That's my favorite sauropod.
Yeah, and you all have the contrasting pronunciations of it.
I say Diplodocus. Yeah, he says Diplodocus. Yeah.
I say
that's. I got Jared. I'm gonna test your dinosaur knowledge. Okay.
Oh God!
And if you get it wrong, I'm gonna cut this out.
No! Don't cut it out. I got to do my best.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm gonna show you my favorite dinosaur. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ready?
Yes, sir. Whoa! Is that an Allosaurus?
Yes.
Nice.
So Brennick and I are in the Jurassic Club. I fucking love Allosaurus so much.
Allosaurus on the arm. I like it. Good Allosaurus.
When that Saurophaganax thing came out, and they are now, from what I understand, kind of calling it more Allosaurus anax now. Saurophaganax is such a cool name, but I was always kind of upset that the biggest like Allosaurid was not named Allosaurus.
Mm.
And now that it's kind of looking like it might be an Allosaur, I think that was 2 years ago or something. Now I celebrated that day.
Yeah, I was on a podcast with the guy that did that description. I don't remember his name. I apologize. So I was not interviewing him. I have this like group that I do a podcast with now and then, and we're just like, he's just like shooting the shit. You know, we're not really taking it all that seriously. And anyway, they did invite one of the authors on that pub. I think the main author on that pub. Into an interview, and I'm in like a marine guy, so I was quiet that whole podcast. I don't think I had anything to offer the whole time because the guys are talking and they're discussing this. I'm just in the back, like just like nodding and smiling the whole time. It was funny.
Yeah, I'm a huge Allosaurus nerd. I have a really, and I have been since I was a kid. Like that's never changed. It changed to Utah Raptor when I read. Have you heard of? You probably have. Have you read Raptor Red by Backer?
So I've heard of it. I've not read it yet.
Yeah, so that was the first novel I ever read, and for like a couple of years, Utah Raptor was my favorite, and then I went right back to Allosaurus. It's like Allosaurus is still my favorite, and that was because the Ballad of Big Al. Brennick, do you remember Walking with Dinosaurs?
Sounds familiar.
It was like a BBC documentary series from, I don't know, like the mid to early 90s, late 90s. I can't remember because I wasn't alive.
late 90s. I
Yeah.
watched it as a kid in the early 2000s. So
Okay, so that's when I watched it because I think you're a similar age to me. Brannick's old as fuck, but they
Yep.
so they had a spin-off Brannick called the Ballad of or Allosaurus, a Walking with Dinosaurs story, and it had like a sub name, the Ballad of Big Al. I have it somewhere.
Ballad of Big Al was good.
This right here, this Allosaurus changed my life.
Yeah.
But
No,
that's ever since then. That was always my favorite.
a lot of people have gotten into paleo because of that series.
Yeah.
There are definitely like two different tracks into paleo, and they are different kinds of people getting in through these tracks. There's mixing, but you definitely have the people who are like media influenced, like a lot of the like Jurassic Park junkies.
Yeah.
They all grow up to be paleontologists, and then you just get dudes like me who rage quit herping, and like Jurassic Park had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I just like
Yeah.
no, I started finding oysters, and I was like, oh, this is cool. All right, this will
I
do.
actually I think I started as more of a media like I got interested into herpetology and paleo because of things like Walking with Dinosaurs, Jurassic Park, and Crocodile Hunter. Those are like my three big ones. And then like I said, I stuck with like paleo, and then at the last second I diverged and I stuck to herp. I can't herp for shit. I've never been good at herping. So
Yeah.
I breed my stuff and I educate. I've been doing science communication for like 15 years now or something like that.
Awesome.
10 years. But yeah, that anyway, we're done talking about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are out. Okay.
They're out.
No more talking about dinosaurs. But I figured everybody had to give at least their favorite dinosaur because that's an important question.
I agree.
So would your okay, well, what's your favorite mosasaur? Mosasaurid.
Okay, so all right, yeah, you can just say mosasaur. We kind of all know what we mean when we say mosasaur. We mean the mosasaurids.
Yeah.
So fair enough.
I thought you might be like, yeah, it's just one that was like, had legs and stuff. I want to know your favorite.
Yeah. The favorite of the swimmy ones. So okay, this is hard because my answer is like kind of whichever one I'm working on. But
that's a cool answer. I like that.
Objectively, I have a couple that contend. I'm not sure if I have a number one, but I have a couple that contend. And there's so many badass mosasaurs, so it's actually really hard to choose. I'm gonna say Carinodins, Platyplatycarpus, Tylosaurus, and I'll explain it. Carinodins. Carinodins is an odd little creature. It is small mosasaur. It's known out of Europe and Morocco from the Maastrichtian, which is the last stage of the Cretaceous period. So these guys were swimming around right before the meteor took them out. And they are shell-crushing mosasaurs, but they're not like the shell-crushing mosasaurs that you might know from, say, Prehistoric Planet. Prehistoric Planet had the Globidins, and Globidins is cool. Globidins is interesting. I think I would explode if I found a Globidin. I'd be very happy about that. But Carinodins is interesting because they became shell crushers in a different way, and they're exceptionally rare, and we don't really know that much about them. Most of the Carinodins material that's ever been found is just like pieces of their lower jaw, and so they have very thin, almost like very snappable, brittle-looking lower jaws, and then their crushing teeth, unlike Globidins, which just has these like muffin-shaped teeth, Carinodins has this. There's nothing quite like it. They're flat side to side, so you would say labiolingually compressed. All that means is that like they're thin if you look at them from the front of the face, but they do crush. They're not like they're I don't want to say they're pointy in the way that a normal mosasaur tooth is pointy. They're like very broad yet kind of almost blade like, but fat at the same. Odd teeth. Nothing has teeth like them.
I'll find a picture. I'll put it in.
Yeah. Good idea. It's also cool because they're very, very rare. Again, there's been one skeleton ever found, and it was not put in a peer-reviewed paper. It was a skeleton found in Jordan, I believe, by some tile manufacturers. They were cutting limestone cubes out of a quarry, and they came into a skeleton of a mosasaur, and it was Carinodins. It's like the rarest mosasaur you could possibly find that's known. That's like not a whole new genus or species, right? And it's probably a new species. The guy that wrote it up did write it up as a new species, but again, not peer reviewed. So technically can't say anything on it, but my opinion is that, yeah, sure, it's probably a new species. That's it. That's the only material that's on crenidans. And so they arrived on the crushing path a little bit differently to globidans. Again, they have these very frail looking jaws, and no one really knows what they were eating or what they did. And I like to imagine that maybe they were like Cerulean specialists or something. Again, speculation. But if you have jaws that are that frail and you're a small creature, yet you're a crusher, like, what are you eating? Like, it's not something that needs a lot of reinforcement, clearly. So, crenidans is pretty cool. They're not known very well. I also said Plioplatycarpus. Plioplatycarpus is a medium-sized mosasaur, and what's cool about them is their third eye. So you guys know for sure that lizards have a third eye. That third eye is, imagine a lizard, viewer. Imagine a lizard right now. Look at him from the top. Between their eyes, on their forehead, there's a little dot. That's their third eye. In Plioplatycarpus, that third eye was ginormous. It's huge. If you look at a Plioplatycarpus skull in dorsal view, it has this giant hole just straight through the middle of its head. How functional is it? I don't know. It's a third eye that's usually used to like interpret contrast. So lizards with a third eye, for example, can tell whether they're looking at something light or something dark, for example. With a Penaleformin as developed, Penaleformin is that hole that houses the third eye. With the Penaleformin as developed as Plioplatycarpus has, that's not like vestigial. They evolved that. They came from animals that didn't have a big third eye. So I like to imagine it had a little bit more function to it than any other lizards had before, because no lizard has a third eye like that. So, yeah, no, maybe they did develop a complex third eye. Is that possible? Yeah. Is it provable? No. So I like to speculate, and that's one thing that I think is cool. And they have blunt little faces and unusual proportions. They're an odd mosasaur. And then
it makes me sorry, not to interrupt you, but I and maybe you can tell me if I sound like an idiot or not. That almost makes me wonder, considering the third eye in a lot of lizards is used for a lot of, like you said, contrast and light detection, if maybe they were doing something in deeper water, like maybe they were more specialized for deep sea stuff. Like, again, it's totally speculation, but
that is a great point. That is a great point, because, oh man, I have to see if there's a paper out on this. I'm about to sound like a fool, because I think maybe this has been looked at. If you look at a Plioplatycarpus skull, their orbit, which is, for casual listeners, it's just like the hole that houses the eye in the skull. Their orbit is huge.
Okay, it's totally deep sea. That's why I'm dying on that hill as a non-paleontologist. Is deep sea.
But there have been some really nice Plioplatycarpus skulls found that have a sclerotic ring. So the sclerotic ring is the bony structure that enforces the eye in these lizards. And their sclerotic ring does not seem to host a very big eye. So they seem to have a giant orbit, but kind of normal-sized eyes. And I know for a fact, and please, like, y'all look this up because I'm forgetting now because I read this years ago. There is a paper looking at eyeball size in Plioplatycarpus, and I know the specimen that they used. I'm visualizing it in my head and trying to remember the conclusions they came to. I think it was that, yeah, their eyes are like not as big as you would think if you were to just look at the orbit without the sclerotic ring. And that makes me think, like, oh, I don't know, maybe they were a deep sea. Like, well, I have to go back and see that, because that would explain the large Penaleformin.
That's what the first thought I had, and it's different. We don't have any deep sea reptiles today, so like deep sea reptiles, it doesn't exist today. So it sounds like it was a special lizard. Okay, tell us about Tylosaurus.
Tylosaurus, yeah, Tylosaurus it's a big dog. The largest mosasaur of all time was probably Mosasaurus hoffmanni, which is what they very loosely based the Jurassic Park mosasaur off of. Mosasaurus hoffmanni is like a 55-foot animal, and it's very large.
I was too embarrassed to tell you that one was my favorite.
So, there's good reason to have it as your favorite. But Tylosaurus kind of, just in terms of cool factor, it did what Mosasaurus does, but like in a way that no one really knows about. Because yes, it's big, maybe as big as hoffmanni. You can never find the biggest skeleton of a species, or maybe you can, but like the odds that you're going to find the biggest individual that ever lived are super low. Okay, and you get specimens like Bunker. So Bunker's a Tylosaurus, and Bunker's huge. I think Bunker might be the largest mosasaur skeleton on display or something like that. Like,
I'm gonna write that down because I need
yeah,
some stuff to read before I go to bed tonight.
yeah, bunker, big old mosasaur, and that's a Tylosaurus. And yeah, Tylosaurus again, massive animal. They dominated Texas, the most famous fossil hunting spot in Texas, probably the most famous fossil hunting spot in the southern U.S. aside from like the Peace River, is the North Sulphur River in Texas, and it is full of Tylosaurus. It is by far the most common mosasaur that you find in the North Sulphur River is Tylosaurus, and it's like monsters. There are really cool specimens of Tylosaurus that exist. The Black Knight, that's a really cool specimen. They named
That's
it
his
the Black.
nickname.
That's its nickname. Yeah,
Wow, that's
they
cool.
named it the Black Knight off of the Monty Python Black Knight because the Black Knight's skull, and I've seen the site, it's actually kind of cool. The skull of Black Knight is destroyed by another mosasaur. Black Knight's a big animal. That was a big specimen, but there was another mosasaur that absolutely rocked him, like rocked him bad. The front of his
That's
face is
cool.
bitten off and shows signs of healing. He has giant infections and like bone infections all over the rest of his face. His teeth are worn in a really weird way. So you would think that he probably had to change his diet because the front of his face was just bitten off by another mosasaur. These things were metal. They didn't like each other, and it's Tylosaurus is like one of the largest, most violent animals of all time, probably. And I'm sure Mosasaurus was too, but you're not finding Mosasaurus with the same propensity as you're finding Tylosaurus in Texas. So I gotta vote Tylosaurus.
But one of the things I want to say is Tyrannosaurus is known to find you're known to find them, if I'm not mistaken, with a lot of wounds to the face, interpreted as adults biting adults on the face for social or territory. We don't know, whatever. Um, it's kind of cool to imagine that maybe Tylosaurus was doing something similar, or like you said, they hate each other. And what I wanted to say is, I remember a documentary from the early 2000s that they built like a metal mosasaur skull, and they were like fucking biting watermelons and shit with it, like just destroying whatever they could with it. And I remember they in that show, and I don't know who did the show. I don't know how credible it is. It's a show, right? So I'm going to assume not that. You know, there's different layers, but they kind of mentioned that it's a possibility that mosasaur, and maybe it sounds ridiculous in the sense that it can't be like that, but mosasaurs were too successful to the point where they kind of had to really rely on going after each other a lot because, I mean, all the sharks are super tiny and gone. Like, there's a lot of pressures on the other species that they're feeding on. It's easy to take an animal and kind of like turn it into a monster, like Jurassic Park style. And I think there's very few animals that actually earn a like no animal's monstrous, except maybe mosquitoes. But like in terms of their own domains, like it kind of feels like Tylosaurus and maybe other mosasaurs like kind of actually were like
So
they
I
were
have
crazy.
I have lots to say on this. One guy, if you want to talk about mosasaurs biting each other, the perfect guy that y'all need to reach out to, and he's also a paleo influencer, is Maximilian Scott. He's notorious
I know
national.
him. Yep, I have him
He
on
just
Facebook. I'll
did his,
message him.
he just did his master's thesis on mosasaurs biting each other, and he found that they bite each other a lot, like
Okay,
all the time. It was cool. I remember he did some. He parsed them out into like what clades are biting each other the most, and every clade bites each other. But yeah, there you can actually like map how violent each species is to each other, which is
that's
kind of.
very cool.
And yes, mosasaurs. Let me word it like this: Dale A. Russell. He's the guy who described Daspletosaurus. What people don't know about him is he actually did a huge, very important contribution to mosasaur research in 1967. So Russell 1967 is a monograph on mosasaurs of North America. He finishes that book with a quote that goes something like, "In conclusion, mosasaurs are dumb and violent and lived short lives if they could help it." And at the time, he's like the premier mosasaur researcher, and we build a lot of mosasaur research off of Russell's hypotheses. Off of his ideas. He's set the groundwork for a lot of the work that's come out on mosasaurs since then. And we have really good evidence of mosasaurs being horrible to each other all throughout the fossil record in cases besides the Black Knight. For example, one of the most recent new species of mosasaurs, it was described by Dr. Mike Polson at SMU. It's an animal called Bentiobosaurus. Okay, the holotype of Bentiobosaurus. The holotype just means like the skeleton that was used for the description. The holotype of Bentiobosaurus was found inside the stomach of another mosasaur.
Oh my God.
So they're in Angola. They find this huge Prognathodon Kionda, and it has 3 mosasaurs inside of it, including another Prognathodon Kionda. So not only was it a cannibal and it ate another one of its own species, but it also had, I think, a Gavialamimus, and then this brand new mosasaur, Bentiobosaurus, in it. So yeah, they're pretty metal. And if you look at, it's funny because if you look at a Prognathodon Kionda dentition, if you look at their teeth, they have like kind of long teeth. You'd be like, oh yeah, it's probably a fish eater. Nah, dude, they were eating whatever they wanted. It seems like every mosasaur was kind of opportunistic, you know? Like, there are mosasaurs that you would expect to be, like, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that would be a mosasaur eater. This thing was hunting other mosasaurs. Things like the Lassatitan out of Morocco. If you look at that dentition and the size that they reached, you'd expect they're probably eating other mosasaurs because they have very robust and just like teeth that will punch through bone and flesh. You look at Kionda, its teeth are comparatively, compared to the Lassatitan at least, comparatively more graceful. You know, when you see graceful teeth, you usually expect a fish eater. But nah, this thing had 3 other mosasaurs inside of it. So yeah, they were hungry and territorial, and they were not nice to each other, which is kind of all. I mean, look at Komodo dragons; it's kind of the same thing. They're always fighting.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at varanids. Like,
yeah,
and like I also like. Okay, I said I wasn't gonna say it. I'm not a professional. I have in I don't think you were alluding to this at all, by the way. I have a really hard time buying the idea that mosasaurs were like unintelligent animals just due to the fact that, or not the fact, sorry, but due to the idea that they could be so related to monitor lizards, which can count for fuck's sake. So like, like in the image of like a animal that is, it's kind of like you bring up this animal in like a video game or something like that, because it's like it's a 50-foot long, 45 foot, whatever, 50 up to 50-foot long, 2 sets of teeth, tongue flicking. If it's a there's I know there's been studies into this. I don't know how like much has been looked into it. All varanids living today are venomous. If that goes back far enough, you know, that would be pretty cool. I'm not saying they are, but that would, how sweet would that be? Like,
it would be sweet. Like varanids are not. I don't think anyone's trying to say varanids are the direct ancestor of mosasaurs.
Yeah, of course. And I don't want to say that I don't want to bring up like. Yeah, I don't want to make anybody think they are. Brannick, I need you to take over for just a minute.
Sounds good.
We like understand. We understand. I think just with the whole varanid thing, it's like they're probably closest to the common ancestor of mosasaurs. I think that's what people are suggesting because, yeah, varanids did not turn into mosasaurs, but they share. There's a thought that varanids and mosasaurs share a common ancestor, and that's why they're like close to each other. That's why you see Varanus used as the outgroup in a lot of phylogenetic studies about mosasaurs, because we need something that's similar enough to be able to make comparisons to new mosasaurs, but different enough so that we can anchor those comparisons and compare like a Varanus to a mosasaur that would have had change since then. That's how phylogenetics works. You have to have a base unit and then your specimen, and then you compare change between that base unit and specimen. And that base unit, the outgroup, is Varanus in a lot of phylogenetic studies.
I had a question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
So, the mosasaurs, you say that would be like the apex predator of that time, right? More or less in its area?
For most of the time that mosasaurs existed, they were the apex predator. In the beginning, not always, but for most of the time that they existed, yes.
So, can you speculate on why there's no more? Would you say it's like a lack of food or just...
Why there are no more mosasaurs?
Yeah. Like
huge
what drove them
meteor,
to extinction?
giant meteor hit the Earth. That's why. Here's the thing. Here's the thing with mosasaurs. So, in as the Cretaceous period progressed, okay, you had a couple faunal turnovers within Mosasauridae. All that means is there was a status quo of how mosasaurs looked and what they did and how they fed and what they ate and the types of mosasaurs that existed, and then that status quo got turned over. How it used to look when mosasaurs were first coming up, when we see the Turonian, for example, the most common mosasaurs that we're finding in the Turonian are the plioplatycarpines. So let me break this down in a way that's kind of digestible. In my opinion, depending on who you ask, but in my opinion, and in the opinion of some other researchers, there are 4 main groups of mosasaurs. Each group we call a subfamily. So there are 4 subfamilies within Mosasauridae. Those subfamilies are Plioplatycarpinae, which there are a lot of mosasaurs in Plioplatycarpinae. Tylosaurinae. Tylosaurinae has Tylosaurus in the species of Tylosaurus and Tenelosaurus in the species of Tenelosaurus. And then a couple stuff that isn't legit. So Plioplatycarpus, Tylosaurus. Mosasaurinae, which is confusing because Mosasaurinae is a subfamily of Mosasauridae. So Mosasaurinae has the same weight as like Tylosaurinae in the taxonomic hierarchy. It's a subfamily as well. And Halosaurinae. So again, 4 groups of mosasaurs: Plioplatycarpines, Tylosaurines, Mosasaurines, Halosaurines. Okay? With that in mind, you can observe a change as mosasaurs evolved and as the Cretaceous went on. We start out with a lot of Plioplatycarpines. They seem to be the most successful. They seem to be the dominant clade of mosasaurs in the Turonian, when mosasaurs are just exploding outwards and they're evolving rapidly and spreading all over the world. Plioplatycarpines seem to dominate, and Tylosaurines are they're there, but they're not as diverse. Then the Coniacian is the next stage of the Cretaceous period. Coniacian comes next. So as the Coniacian comes around, and then the Santonian after it, the Tylosaurines start to do really well. You still have a lot of Plioplatycarpines swimming around, but Tylosaurus itself seems to be the dominant predator in this ecosystem. So the Tylosaurines, they were the big dogs. Mosasaurines were not really around in much capacity. You had Cladastes. Cladastes is a type of mosasaurian. They were swimming around at the same time. In the Turonian, for example, when Plioplatycarpines were dominant, you had Dallosaurus. Dallosaurus is a mosasaurian. It was swimming around. But really, mosasaurians are background characters still. So the first half of mosasaur evolution, you get lots of Plioplatycarpines, and then it turns into lots of Tylosaurines. And Plioplatycarpines and Tylosaurines are related. So as a group, they're really like dominating the first half of this. Once the Campanian comes, so the Campanian comes after the Santonian. Now we're talking at the same time as like Daspletosaurus, for example. Once the Campanian comes around, something happens. Tylosaurines still exist, and in Texas we have giant Tylosaurines in the Campanian. But once the Campanian is done and over with, Tylosaurines are no longer the big dogs. Plioplatycarpines are also not the big dogs. It's the Mosasaurines. The Mosasaurines were very good at rapidly evolving into new niches, and they really exploded around the Campanian. And you have the greatest diversity of tooth type and of body size and all sorts of things, all sorts of comparisons. Mosasaurines are the most diverse in every way. They just seem to be able to respond to vacant niches better than the Tylosaurines could. And so the Mosasaurines, they just knock it out the park. And so for the entire Maastrichtian, Mosasaurines are dominant. There's nothing that's competing with them in the same capacity as they compete among themselves. And so because of this, because the Mosasaurines take over, you get this huge species explosion in the Maastrichtian, the final stage of the Cretaceous. There are more species in the Maastrichtian in Morocco than in what's another mosasaur rich hotspot? The Niobrara Formation in Kansas. That's like Coniacian. There are far more Moroccan mosasaurs than Kansas Coniacian mosasaurs. And it's because it's a mosasaurian dominated environment in Morocco. So mosasaurians are everywhere. Here's the issue with that. If you can evolve into new niches and exploit vacant niches really well, yes, you become very dominant, but you have to specialize. And so I don't want to say most, but many mosasaurians at this time were hyper specialized carnivores. Like Carinodins is a mosasaurian, hyper specialized. Whatever it was eating, it was weird. Um, with this kind of specialization comes vulnerability. Generalists are the ones that adapt best to turnovers in the environment because they can sample their food from many places. And there were generalists within mosasaurs, but they're big, like the big generalists. Like Thalassatitan probably ate whatever it wanted, but it was eating big things, you know? Thalassatitan itself was huge. So you get the big generalist mosasaurians and then the specialized fish eaters like Gavialamimus that were swimming among them, the specialized something mystery eaters like Carinodins, hyper specialized things like Xenodins. Whatever Xenodins was eating, we have no idea. Like,
Xeno means strange, I think. So that anytime I hear the word Xeno,
mhm.
I think we don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, Xenodins means strange teeth because they have these shark-like teeth, and there's been like arguing, but Xenodins is probably legit, right? It's weird, tiny little mosasaur. So again, mosasaurs are hyper specialized at the end of the Cretaceous, and as a result, they probably weren't that good at adapting to major change. And it honestly, when you have a meteor the size of Mount Everest hurtling towards you, it doesn't matter how good you are at adapting to change, unless you're like underground, you're probably gonna die. So in the end, that didn't matter too much, but it did leave mosasaurs particularly vulnerable to a mass extinction in case a giant event like that happened. Because again, so much specialization meant that you were restricted, you were in your lane, like you were eating one thing and one thing only. And if that thing went away, you were done. You know, Xenodins could only eat what Xenodins was eating, probably because of how specialized its teeth were. And with Xenodins, if the thing that Xenodins ate went, Xenodins was gone too. That's how it would have worked. So that's why mosasaurs were vulnerable to extinction, I would say.
Perfect. And then I'm going to jump back here because I'm a bit of a size queen. How big was Olive?
Oh, okay. So going back, yeah. So for those of you who are trying to remember, yeah, Olive is the mosasaur that my brother and I found, the Turonian specimen. Olive's very exploded, but our guesstimation is about 14 feet, which is about what you would expect in the Turonian. There are some big-ish Turonian mosasaurs. Iguarosaurus could probably approach 20. You know, it's probably getting there. But for the most part, like 20 is a giant lizard. That's it. For a lizard, that's huge. But for a mosasaur, Mosasaurus could reach 50 feet if they wanted to. Like Mosasaurus itself could reach 50 feet. There's nothing stopping it. It probably could get bigger. I won't be surprised if one day there's like a 65-foot Mosasaurus pound like that.
He's so
To me, that's possible. You know, you get dudes like Shaq walking around in Homo sapiens. Like you're probably gonna get absolutely gargantuan Hoffmanni that were swimming around as well. So perfectly possible. But in the Turonian, yeah, mosasaurs weren't very big yet.
Do you know what the smallest mosasaur is? Because I'd like one as a pet.
So the smallest mosasaur right now is, it might be a tie now, low key. Now that I'm thinking, with a description of Xenodins, but traditionally Dallosaurus. So Dallosaurus is about a 1 meter long mosasaur.
I can do that. I can handle that.
Very small little critter.
Yeah,
very small for mosasaur. Xenodins, I think, is interpreted as a similar size, but the holotype is like one maxilla. Okay. Typically, you're not going to describe a brand new species off of a single maxilla. It's like this upper cheekbone for those that are listening. But its teeth were so weird that it was like, yeah, this is without a doubt.
All right.
Yeah, this is something we've never seen before. We got to describe it as kind of the vibe that was going there. It wasn't us. It was, I think it was Nick Longrich that described Xenodins. But, yeah, no, that was also a small animal. Carinodins is another really small one. Carinodins is probably about a 6-footer.
Man, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That's like a mosasaur you can have in an aquarium. Like not in a home aquarium. I mean like you could have it in an aquarium.
Yeah, very manageable. And one thing that's nice, like seeing a big mosasaur in person is shocking, right? But I'm working on the basal stuff. That's what I'm interested in right now. That's what I'm researching. So most of the mosaurs I'm working with are like 10-foot animals. They're not that big, and it's kind of convenient. And whenever I'm in the field and I'm looking for mosasaurs, I'm really like crossing my fingers that I find one of the little ones, because I love digging and I love being out in the field. But holy good God, it is a lot of work to do it correctly. I had to lead the charge on mosasaur that a friend of mine discovered. So my friend Lee Schnell, he's a geologist. He found Gracie, and I'm sure you guys have probably seen me post about Gracie by now, because Gracie is the most well-preserved mosasaur ever found in Texas, without a doubt. Like, already we can tell, like, insane mosasaur, like beautiful articulation. It's just everything that you can want. Gracie has, right? So that's Gracie is. I can't say much about her. I can't really say many details because um, I'm not on that paper. So I did have to. The point is to tie this all in. Um, when Lee found that, Lee didn't know how to excavate a mosasaur. He had helped me excavate Olive. So I showed up and we plastered up the tail first, because the tail is what was exposed. So we plastered up the tail and I gave him a couple pointers, and he ended up doing a really good job on the day that I wasn't there. So it was team effort, but leading the charge on Gracie, even though she was about as perfect as you can get in terms of an easiest excavation possible on that specimen, with how she was lying in the creek and everything, it was still a lot of work. It was a huge ordeal, and that was the first time I was ever like leading an excavation. It was the first time an excavation was like my responsibility, because I was like had to direct things, and I was like nervous, because you understand that this specimen is insane. Gracie is very old, probably the same age as Olive, maybe a tad younger, but probably the same age as Olive, and amazingly preserved. And you understand, like, in that moment, like, dude, I cannot mess this up. Like, if something bad happens to this animal, it is on me. And the one piece of damage on that whole skeleton that was like human induced and not just from creek action or something was because of me too. Like, what you do when when you're trying to find the edge of a bone, okay, in a nice like soft matrix, is you take a sharpened pick, like an ice pick or sharpened screwdriver, and you're just pushing it into the sand. It's just shook, shook, and then eventually you're just gonna hear a shunk. And when you hear that thunk, you hit something hard. It's usually bone, okay, and so that typically doesn't harm the specimen because bone is robust. You're gonna just thunk right in the middle of it, unless you just get insanely unlucky and like catch bone just perfectly on the edge, and then you'll take a big chunk off of the edge. That's exactly what I did, and I did it to the tip of Gracie's snout, right on her back.
No!
I know, because you wanna take out a plaster jacket, right? And you don't want the plaster jacket to be too big, so you need to kind of know where the bone ends, so you can give it some space, because you want the skeleton to be in the jacket with some room to spare. But you don't want to take something that's too big. So you got to find the edge of the bone. And then once you know where the edge of the bone is, you form the jacket around that. And I was just going in with my screwdriver, and I got that insanely unlucky 0.1% chance of just hitting the side of the premaxilla perfectly. And that's exactly what happened. And just a big groove just shook out off the side. And I was like, oh, it hurts so bad. And so look at the specimen now. I mean, the preparation is just mind-numbing. Like, I cannot wait for Gracie to publish. Like, it's going to blow everyone's minds. But looking at it now, it's like, wow, this is such a beautiful specimen, and there's just a big groove taken off the front of the nose.
Yeah,
like,
it says big arrow. This was Jared.
For real.
Jared was here.
Like, it sucks because like I know you can't really help it. Like that's what you do when you're looking for bone. You just kind of have to run that risk. But the fact that it still happened to me is like, of course, of course I did that. Of course I did.
Yeah. So one of these days, I'm gonna bother you to come out there.
Yeah.
And I want to dig something up. When our countries don't hate each other, I'm gonna come over there. Two.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the somewhere in the world is you remember you know how Archaeopteryx is preserved, and a dozen others or whatever. Somewhere there is a newly born or hatched mosasaur? I think born. Mosasaur, newly hatched, preserved like that, waiting for you to find it, Jared.
Yeah, I would like to.
Perfectly articulated.
Yeah.
Like this, a little baby mosasaur, this big. Think of a 20-footer. Think of saltwater crocodile babies this big.
Mm-hmm.
In that pose, It's waiting. It's got your fucking name on it, and you're gonna find it. And when you
Uh,
do, I want to hear about it.
yes, sir.
Um,
Yes, sir. I'll get you the invite. It's gonna be like,
how
hey, I'm
cool
gonna
would
pick
that
this
be?
up for exactly 1 hour. You have an hour
Yep.
to get because it's gonna be done after that.
Yeah.
That
Perfectly
would be
preserved mosasaur baby would be pretty. Well, it's kind of crazy to. I mean, I understand too that ichthyosaurs have a much longer, like mosasaurs weren't along geologically time scale speaking, weren't around for that long. Whereas,
yeah.
like in some, I think of ichthyosaurs, I think of really well preservation just because of the famous ones. And from my understanding, there's not like that isn't really necessarily a thing for mosasaurs. Maybe with this new one there is, but like in general, like you find mosasaur bones, but like you always see like these flat slabs of rock with a flattened ichthyosaur, and it's got a baby in its belly, and you're like, what the fuck, like, or a
Yeah.
baby like ichthyosaur halfway out. You know what I mean? Like, there's some really famous ichthyosaurs like that, and somewhere out there, there's mosasaurs.
Yeah, we have some nice mosasaurs. I wouldn't say to that capacity, but like there's this Los Angeles County Museum specimen. It's a platycarpus that has like beautiful soft tissue and everything. Gracie has soft tissue. It's I'm not going to say what soft tissue, but there is soft tissue on Gracie.
The
Los
penis.
Angeles specimen that has like skin. There have been enough pieces of mosasaur skin found that like we know what their scales were like. For example, think of a big old Tylosaurus in your head right now. Okay, out of Kansas, there have been some Tylosaurs found. Or like Tenosaurus is another fish eater that's probably like a 15-foot animal, right? So on a Tenosaurus, the specimen that has soft tissue there, their scales are about as big as a garter snake's scales.
Whoa, Garters, you fucking
Oh,
asshole, Jared. You fucking motherfucker. I you don't know what you just did.
What did I
I
just do?
have been you fucker. I've been trying so hard to have garter snakes. I specialize in garter snakes. I've been trying so fucking hard to not mention garter snakes for an episode, and it wasn't even me who did it. Every
Uh,
episode we've ever had mentions garter snakes. I found a way to mention garter snakes in the Anole episode. And now Jared comes over here and mentions garter snakes. It wasn't even me.
Yeah, well, there you go. If you next time you see a garter snake, look at its scales, and then in your head think, "Wow,
I'm looking at
that's
one right now.
good." That's how like an Actinosaurus scale looked. You know, these small little keeled scales.
I almost brought up garter snakes earlier to say that if I was gonna get into paleo, I'd want to study like I'm really interested in where garter snakes came from
Mm-hmm.
before their ancestors crossed over Beringia and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Like the colubrids in general, or like garter snakes
No,
specifically.
no, Natricinae. So the subfamily that includes garter snakes,
Okay.
Natrix, Neurodia, like all the water snakes in your
Yeah,
anything. Yeah, that's where my interest lies. But I was being a good boy today, Jared. I was being a really good boy.
that's so fun. Heck yeah.
Okay, well now the floodgates open, and next we're having a guy for next episode is either I think next episode is for pike, like the fish.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
They're
cool.
basically I know they're not herp. I don't care. I fucking love pike.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find a way to bring up garter snakes now. You have given me permission.
Let's go. Let's go.
I know. Are you good for another 15?
Sure, we can run another 15.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, I think for those who don't know, like we're recording this during the Super Bowl, and none of us are really football heads, but we do want to catch some parties after this. So we're like trying to we keep eyeballing the clock a little bit, but yeah, another
Yeah.
15.
Okay, sweet. I just want to hour 30. I'm happy with an hour 30 if that's okay with you.
Yeah, let's run it.
But you know what's funny about this episode is I kind of wanted to make it like because it's in a resource that I wish I had. Well, I'm sure there was around, but I wish I found when it was like I was looking into if I wanted to get into paleo or herp stuff. Paleo stuff, I always assumed you needed like a PhD for it, and you kind of don't. Like, I know that's what you're going for and whatnot, but I always kind of wish I knew that you didn't necessarily need that. Like, if you were to, for example, Jared, stop what you're doing, post like education wise, and keep doing what you're doing, there's people that would consider you a paleontologist because the definition of paleontology doesn't mean you need a PhD, right? But
Yeah, so the PhD straight and narrow path. It's like the safe path, but by no means do you need a PhD. It's like you should if you can. Like if you can help it, go get a PhD. It's good for your training. You know, you become a better scientist by doing it. But there are plenty of people who have done very good research in the absence of a PhD. Dr. Dean Lomax, he's like this famous ichthyosaur researcher, and he did not walk the straight and narrow path. He has a PhD now, but his early scholastic career was like arduous. I don't know the details, but if you just Google it, like he has a lot of blog posts about that kind of stuff. Mike Everhart, well,
Yeah.
he's the big Kansas guy. The dude that wrote Oceans of Kansas. He's done a lot of research. He has some species named after him. He describes a few mosasaurs like Tylosaurus kansascensis. He's like the Kansas Western Interior Seaway paleontologist. And he started in his 40s, you know? Like I know so many folks who have done a career switch at like 40 years old.
It's gonna be me.
Yeah, maybe it's perfectly possible. It's perfectly possible. I think I'm fortunate that I did find paleo at about 20. I'm 25 now, so I found it at about 20. It's like good. It's like I can.
Hey, we're the same age, dude. I thought you were a year older.
Yeah, no. I'm 25 now, so I'm glad I found it at 20.
Old. I'm pointing at Brennick. You're old.
Just by 5 years, guys. Come on.
What was I gonna say? So, yeah, all I was saying is I'm glad I found it at the time I did, because it gives me opportunity to take grad school without like interrupting my life much, you know? So that is cool. But, you know, I'm working with some paleontologists now. You know, I've been in discourse with a fish guy, really good fish guy in Alabama, who's specialized in fishes, also doesn't have his PhD, you know. My mentor, he has his PhD, but he got it as a bucket list thing. He had a lot of work prior to his PhD that was like really, really solid, like really good revolutionary work. And he didn't like need a PhD to do that. He still had his position, you know. I go for it. To me, I think you become a paleontologist proper once you are published. So like I have trouble calling myself anything else because I'm doing paleontology research and I make my money making videos about paleontology and things like that. But it's like to wear the title, I think it's fair enough to be like, yeah, you publish a paper and then it's like, boom, you can wear that title. It's like you've done research. And I think that's kind of all it requires, low key. If you have a paper, in my mind, you're a paleontologist.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen other people sorry, Brandon, just really quick. I've seen other people describe it before, and you know, I don't have a dog in the game for the 50th fucking time, but like I've seen other people describe it simply, like very simply put it, if you contribute to paleontology, call yourself a paleontologist. You know what I mean? Like, and like I said, whether my beliefs don't matter, but like I've heard that before from paleontologists who have PhDs. For example, Brennick, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like having a PhD adds a lot of like bureaucratic bullshit to your digs.
Not really. I think what it does is it gives you an opportunity to go through bureaucracy to get to places you otherwise wouldn't be able to access. Because there are some places that, like, no matter what, you're going to have to go through bureaucracy to get into them, like BLM land, Bureau of Land Management, for example. Yeah. Like, you cannot fossil hunt on Bureau land, no matter where you are. Every state has their own fossil hunting laws, so it depends per state. But as a whole, general rule, Bureau land, that's federal. Like, you can't, good luck.
Fair.
So you have to go through bureaucracy to get it. And if you have your PhD and you're working with an institution, that's, like, possible. But if you're just, like, any old guy, nah. So it adds bureaucracy. It adds bureaucracy to your digs, but not in a way that hinders you, because it's more so you get an opportunity to dig in more places that you have to navigate through bureaucracy to get to, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I was going somewhere earlier where I originally expected and kind of was pushing for the episode to be like, oh, like if you want to be a paleontologist, this is how you do it. This is how this guy's doing it. And at this point, this episode is a mosasaur episode.
Yeah.
And I think that is not only an okay, like we were talking before we started recording, that things are going to go off the rails. It has gone off the rails so much that this is now a Mosasaur episode, because we spent
Awesome.
out of an hour and a half of our time, over an hour talking about Mosasaurs.
As we should. As
a herpetological podcast, we have found our safe spot of
Yes.
including herps and paleo. Well, I mean, realistically, dinosaurs are reptiles too, but
Yeah. I think,
mosasaurs are lizards.
like, to answer your question, like, if we were to do the podcast of, oh, here's how you become a paleontologist, kind of straightforward. Like, I think we would, I would say the default path is straightforward. People come into it all sorts of ways. My path is not default. The way I came into it is a lot different. But on average, here's all you do. You ready? Suppose you're in high school and you're like, I want to be a paleontologist. What do I do? You're going to major in one of two things, okay? Either biology or geology. And whatever you major in, try and minor in the other, just to give you a good background foundation. These days, most paleontologists are coming from the biology or biology inclined. It used to be that most paleontologists were coming in from geology, though. So major in one, minor in the other, if you can help it. The way I'm doing it, I'm majoring in zoology, because at A&M, biology is mostly like human oriented, and I don't really care for that. So I'm majoring in zoology. I'm not minoring in geology because I don't want to, and I'd have too many credits. So that's just me. Okay, don't follow my example. But on average, yes, major in biology or geology. Go to grad school, specialize in grad school. That's kind of what it is. You have to be really good at anatomy. It's good to be multidisciplinary. That's what you would do. But to make yourself stand out, so you actually have a fighting chance in the field, because it's pretty competitive, you got to be real. You have to have some way of science communication. I don't care if you have an Instagram page that has 22 followers. Good. Science communicate on that. Okay? Campaign on that. A lot of grants these days are very particular, like, what are you doing to science communicate? And there are many ways you can do that. Social media is probably the easiest. But you can give talks at, like, Paleo Society meetings, that kind of things. Also, network. There are so many people who are in positions that maybe they don't even deserve to be in, but they networked really well, so they got them. If you want good positions, you should know people. So network as much as possible. Go to conferences. I have nothing to present at a conference. Doesn't matter. Go to a conference anyway and talk to people anyway. So in addition to doing your major of biology or zoology, and in addition to, applying to grad schools, get to know people, go to conferences. And to make yourself stand out, try and get published as an undergrad, because the people that you're going to be applying against also have good grades. Like, sure, yes, have good grades, but don't lean on that as the only thing, because your composition also has good grades. You need to, and in my case, my grades are not the best. Like, I'm relying hard on the SciComm and on the research side of things to, like, demonstrate that, like, don't worry, I do know how to do research, It's, I think, a good idea for everyone to try and get published as an undergrad. So if you do those things, major in biology or zoology, get published as an undergrad, talk to people at conferences, and go to grad school, you'll be a paleontologist. Or you'll be a paleontologist you'll have good opportunity to be a paleontologist. And the thing that I want to say, because most people are like, oh, the job opportunities are so bad. Dude, in this economy, job opportunities for everything is so bad. You might as well do what you've always wanted to do anyway. If you are any scientist working in any STEM field, apart from, like, designing missiles, if you're in the life sciences, you're going to have a hard time finding a job no matter what. So just burn your boats like Hernan Cortez and just commit to the bit, and you'll probably find success. That's all there is to say about it. That's, like, to me, that's what I'm doing, is just put your head down and just charge.
Yeah. And there's shit for the weirdos too that don't want to do any of that. There's paleo art. There's a lot of computer sciences and stuff that goes into modern day paleontology, which people don't even think about. They think paleontology is going into the field and digging up fossils. I mean, what percentage actually is that? Probably, not a lot. Like, fossil preparators. A lot of that is volunteer work, and, like, you work your way up if you in certain facilities.
you can be a commercial preparator, and commercial preparators get enlisted all the time to do like actual preparation on museum specimens. Commercial preparators, those are just folks that are like, hey, I charge $25 an hour, $30 an hour to prepare your fossil. Bring your fossil to me. I give it back to you in the condition that you want it, and then you can display it. And they work with fossil hunters and stuff. But some of them are very talented. Like there's a commercial preparator named Chris Howe in Dallas. He runs Global Paleo Services. And it's just him. He's a one-man team, but oh my lord, that man is talented. He just prepared a bird with feathers from the Green River Formation. Preparing feathers is extraordinarily difficult. That specimen is now in, I think, the Field Museum. So, you know, you can contribute to like big deal specimens that will end up in big deal museums as a commercial preparator as well. Happens all the time.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities in paleo, and I say it, and I think it's important for you, especially, to say stuff like that, because I wish that was something I knew when I was making my decisions. Because if I could go back 10 years and do things differently, I'd be doing things very fucking different.
And you have to keep social media is a new thing. There are, I can count on one hand the amount of people that are making a living doing like paleontology social media. It's Harrison, me, probably Daily Dino Guy. I know of like that.
I watch a lot of him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like self-sufficient. I like know of him, but I've never talked to him. But he is a large enough audience to certainly be self-sufficient. And like social media, like TikTok, for example, doing very well. TikTok is very generous to its creators right now. Instagram,
I'm Canada. I can't get paid in Canada from TikTok at all.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, you can't. Nope.
Okay, well, if you're in Canada, I'm sorry. But if you're in the US...
You're in Canada, fuck you! We fucking hate you!
Yeah, no, for real. Instagram kind of sucks because you make no money off of views unless you post, like, a gajillion videos a month. And you have to, like, meet that quota. And there's no way. My content style, I can't produce that much. Are you kidding me? So, I like 4 videos a month just like my tops. That's, like, the most I can do. Let's be real. Because I actually have to find stuff in order to post it, too, you know? So, with that in mind, like, TikTok... like, dude, if you can get on the TikTok game in paleo, do it. It's a unoccupied niche in what's objectively like the coolest career field in science outside of like astronomy and being an astronaut. It's like up there with the default cool jobs. And then in social media, which is like the biggest thing in the world right now in terms of making money outside of like war and oil. You know, it's like the biggest accessible money making way that people can just access. Like paleontology is so unexplored, and it's at a point now where it's like when new paleo content creators come up, I feel zero competitiveness because the field is so underdeveloped that the more people get eyes on more creators, the more it helps everybody. And again, unexploited niche is paleo content on social media. If you want to do paleo stuff, that's how I got where I am right now. I mean, most of my opportunities besides finding scientifically significant specimens myself has come from what social media has provided for me. It's probably how I got into A&M in the first place. So again, another way you can do it, I highly suggest people do it, and I hope more people do it, because not only is it unexploited, but just selfishly, I want more people to see paleontology on social media because they're going to follow me too. You know, it's like it works for everybody. There's this abundance right now, this untapped abundance. So it works.
Yeah, I think it definitely benefits the thing as a whole. So thank you, Dino Mommy. We appreciate your content. Have you seen that?
No.
No, are you serious?
My head.
Are you kidding me? Bullshit.
I'm not kidding you. I was like, this man just called me Dino Mommy. What the heck?
No, there's a creator that showed up on my thing like a month ago, and she calls it. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. She goes, I'm Dino Mommy. I'm a paleontologist with a doctorate, and she's cute. That girl. Have you seen her?
I've heard of her, yeah. Yeah, Ray Suker or something like that.
Yeah, he subscribed. This guy subscribed to her.
Nah.
No, I think it definitely, like, paleo rocks. And if you actually, you know, like, it's really interesting to me because I started like I said, is I was really interested in Jurassic Park and walking with dinosaurs, and then the more I looked into it, the more I got interested into the other aspects of it. Like, whereas a lot of the stuff that I will read about now doesn't even have anything to do with like not conventional, but like everybody think immediately dinosaurs, right? Dinosaurs are a disgustingly huge part of paleontology because it's like the bias towards it. If I see a paper about like Gigantopithecus or Anomalocaris or something weird animal, like I'm super excited about it. And coming from somebody who started off as like it was almost like there's in paleontology there's dinosaurs and then there's all the other guys, you know what I mean, where it's really not like that. Like it's not like that at all. And I think as soon as you kind of get rid of that bias yourself, there's a lot of room for people. There's fucking paleo guys who study flies all their life, like you know what I mean? Like, there's so much room for
forams and bivalves.
Yeah, absolutely.
At A&M, they're like no vertebrate paleontologists. They're like 5 invertebrate paleontologists, and they're all studying like clams and stuff.
Yep.
You know.
Where's the garter snake paleontology?
There actually
right
is
here. I'm working on it.
Yeah. Let's go, boy. I actually have a fossilized snake vertebra that I found not too long ago. Pterosphenus sutura.
I got some Neurodia ones somewhere that are like out of all my. I have a very small fossil collection. It's very small. My Neurodia vertebrae are my favorite because that's what I specialize in. Right, is my garters and water snake, and that's just where my interest is.
This guy literally chose the like 2 stinkiest snakes possible, and he's like, "Those are my favorite." That's crazy.
Yeah, stinky guy needs stinky snakes to specialize in.
Yeah,
they're fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's like all the jokes about a new cologne coming out. It's like
on the shirt.
On my website, I have a shirt it has a picture of a perfume bottle with a Neurodia, a water snake in it, and it says like, what does it say? I can't even remember. I was gonna wear it today. Actually, I can find it. It says like Neurodia for him, find your musk or something like that.
Oh. You never forget too. Like catching a Neurodia is like probably the most unpleasant experience you could possibly have. Because they smell bad and then they just bite the crap out of you, and then you're just like,
people joke about garter snakes. The people who joke about garter snakes have never caught a water snake because they're literally that, except you're covered in blood after as well. Like
yeah.
I've got 2 right behind the camera. There's 2 diamondback water snakes. They're like 4 feet. I fucking hate going in there.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Yeah, they're the worst. I caught one while I was kayaking one time. He just surfaced next to me, and I was like, "Oh no, wait!" And I grabbed him, and then just ting, and I was like, "Fine, dude." I just let go. I was like, "Fine."
Yeah, no, they're fantastic, but they've got weirdly keeled scales. They're live birth. They're venomous. They're this. They're that. They're that. They're that. They're super cool snakes. I love them. Fuck all the other ones, except the ones I like, which are all of them.
Are Neurodia technically venomous too?
They have the rear fangs, and there hasn't been a lot of like looking into it, but like their ancestral state is a Duvernois gland. They're probably venomous. If you think about the garter snake thing, like the garter snake venom is very recent too. Like people are still arguing with me that garter snakes aren't venomous. So
yeah, I knew garters are venomous. I just didn't know that Neurodia might be too.
I'm gonna say yes. My Neurodia fasciata pictiventris, which are my Florida banded water snakes, my female's fang is like bigger than any of my garter snakes. Very big fangs at the back. My diamondbacks have very small fangs, so I think it's it's weird because they're some of our most common snakes, but they're super under researched when it comes to that kind of thing. Like all the research goes into like their diets and stuff, but every
time I've seen a snake feeding event, it's been a Neurodia rhomba for eating catfish, and I'm always like backwards. Something I'm like, how? Because they have these pectoral spines, and it's just so metal. It's like, how are you?
There's a picture out there of a garter snake, and it's eating a little bullhead catfish, and the spine is stabbing through the neck of the garter snake.
Oh, good lord!
And it ate 2 or 3 more after that catfish. It did not give a shit. Like, it
That
kept
is
going.
that is gnarly.
Very cool. I love them. I think they're awesome. And then I started getting into the natrix as well, which are the European grass snakes. They're separated from garter snakes specifically. I'm not sure. I can't remember Nerodia, but from garter snakes, they diverged about 36 million years ago is the consensus right now. So they look like garter snakes. They're very similar. They're very basal snakes, all of them. Like if you pick up a rhabdophis or something from Asia and compare it to a garter snake, you're like, okay, these are clearly related animals. But the natrix they still all the like Europe and Asia. I'm not sure about all, but a lot of them all still like lay eggs. For example, they're very basal snakes. It's the North American ones which are weird. I assume there's been some studies into thinking that the northern, like handling cold climates, is live births a little better for reptiles. So maybe when they were crossing over through the Bering Land Bridge, they adapted the whole live birth thing, and then all the natricines in North America kept it. I don't know. This ain't Garter Snakes Part 2 though, so
Yeah, no, we gotta be. I just got a 20% notification on my phone, so
yeah, we're at 137 now, so you gave me an extra 7 minutes, which I'm not going to pay you for. But Jared, like if you're down, I'd love to have you back on at some point. You were super awesome.
I appreciate it.
It would be super fun to have you back on again. I really appreciate you coming on. And now is the time to plug all of your shit for the 3 people who are listening who haven't heard of you before.
All right, cool. I appreciate it. Yeah, on TikTok, I'm Jared.Cook. I Cook with an E at the end. I got a silent E. So TikTok is Jared.Cook. Instagram is JCookPaleo. YouTube is also JCookPaleo. I haven't made long form content in there in a few years, but once I clear my phone storage, I'll make some more. And then, yeah, those are
fans.
And I got
Go ahead.
I got in all of those. You can just hit my link in bio. You'll find all of my stuff there. I also have a merch store. So if you're interested in some cool paleo themed gear that's like not designed for a child audience, it's like designed for an adult audience, so it's something you can like actually wear in real life, hop on there. I designed all of them myself. That's about all I got to say. I appreciate you all having me on. This was pretty cool.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today, Jared.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff. All right. I appreciate y'all.
No worries.
Take care.
Hold on. Thank you for tuning in to Creature Crossing. Please check the description for social media links, Patreon, and more. Feel free to subscribe and leave us a review. The song used for our intro and our outro is called The Snake Eater's Palace, Outer Heaven by Audio Mocha, Anime Vivi, and Endless Repeat, which we found at ocremix.org. Thanks again for listening.